Kind of moving up, so we've got very low level vision. We have kind of visual selective attention, this ability to pick out important information from the environment. Can then move up to slightly higher things, for instance, what we call cognitive flexibility. And so we can measure this in tasks, for instance, called task switching tasks. So one very classic task that we use to measure this is known as a task switching task. So as you can see here in this particular task, subjects see a colored shape that's in one of 8 quadrants on the field, or one of 8 pieces of the pie on a visual field. And so this shape is going to move very predictably counterclockwise around these 8 pieces. And your job as a subject is, if the piece is on the top part of the screen, you have to indicate its color. So for instance, if it's a red circle, you'd have to indicate red. If it's a blue square, you'd have to say blue. When the shape moves to the bottom part, you then have to switch and you have to say what shape it is. So you'd have to say circle or square. And so what's very well known is that on these trials where you switch from, say, doing the shape task to doing the color task, or from the color task to the shape task, you actually pay a cost. It takes you, say, 250 milliseconds longer to do that trial where you actually had to switch between tasks than one in which you get to do the same thing over. So if you do a color trial and then another color trial, you're going to be that much faster than if you do a color trial and then a shape trial. And so this is known as the switch cost. And if you think about the way we live our lives today, we're constantly switching between different types of tasks. So, if you're like me, you have 6 different tabs open on your web browser, your phone is going off with text messages, people are coming in and out, you're getting emails. You're constantly making these little switches between tasks. And you can think of the fact that every single time you make one of these switches, you're paying this little tiny cost, a quarter of a second. However, each quarter of a second, given the number of switches that we make in kind of normal day-to-day life, adds up to quite a lot of time that we're spending just doing the switches, this kind of cognitive process of doing the switching. And so again, this is a task or a skill that's improved by playing these action video games. People who train on action video games reduce their switch cost by, say, about half, depending on how long they've trained on the action video games. And so this is important for many jobs that require substantial amounts of switching. So again, we can think of endoscopic surgeons. There's a decent amount of kind of switching between minor tasks when you're doing these types of surgeries. And indeed, people have shown that prospective surgeons who are trained on action video games actually show better performance in simulator surgeries than people who are trained on, say, a chess video game. And actually, in a large cross-sectional study, researchers, Butch Rosser and others, have shown that the best predictor of endoscopic surgical skill is actually the amount of time your surgeon spends playing video games. This was a better predictor of surgical skill than things like the number of surgeries they've completed or the number of years of training. It was a very, very strong predictor of how good a surgeon the individual actually was.